Um, Carol van Wyk, good morning. Can you introduce yourself and talk about your role and also the phases of the repatriation process of Basil February?
Okay, good morning. I am Carol van Wyk. I am the Chief Director for Cultural Affairs in the Western Cape Department of Cultural Affairs and Sport. And in this repatriation and restitution process, I am responsible for the provincial leg of the process, where I provide coordination as well as oversight over the reburial process. The repatriation process has 5 phases. So phase 1 and phase 2 happens at national. Phase 1 basically is linked to the TRC missing task team persons, where they identify the stalwarts that need to be repatriated, and then they obtain consent from the family. In Basil's case, it was when the NPA team went out to fill in forms and to gain consent from the families for them to participate in this process. Phase 2 is then where National go through the TRC exhumation team and so forth, and the NPA missing task people. They then do the mapping, geographical mapping in the particular country where the stalwart is to be repatriated from. Phase 3 is where we deal with the family liaison, if I may say so. Mm-hmm. So with the family liaison is where the province gets on board as well, where the province now from national take over and engage with the families and getting them ready to travel to the foreign country to see where their loved one has been buried in that process. Phase 4 is the handover to the province, where the province now deals with the reburial process. And then phase 5 is where we are looking at, phase 5 is where we're looking at the post-memorialization process. So 5 phases in the repatriation process. And as I've said, my role is to coordinate and to walk with the family to ensure that once the reburial takes place, it's a dignified process for the family. It's also part of getting families, to get that closure in terms of ensuring that their loved one has returned to the country.
Interesting. In the Western Cape, the remains of 3 freedom fighters were repatriated. How were the families involved in that particular process with the department?
Okay. As I've said, phase 3 started there, where the department received the names of the families that is to be repatriated. So it was the Tamana family, it was Betwell Tamana, it was Basil February, and it was Madoda Bioli that the Western Cape had to receive and to assist the families. So the families, I would say, from the provincial side, when we stepped in, were involved, I think, from the onset, where we as a department contacted the family, each family, and introduced ourselves. And then from there, we explained the process to the family. Of course, it wasn't easy because the families didn't know the Department of Cultural Affairs and Sport. And
Indeed.
why are you coming in now? We don't know you. So it was the starting, I'd say, of the journey. And the department started to explain to the families, not having quite a lot of information, because you need to understand that this was the first time that South Africa as a whole had the repatriation and the reburial process at that massive scale. So the information that we had as a province was not that much. And we had to grasp, and sitting in daily meetings with National to grasp, and so that we can feed this information to the families. Our stance from the start is that what we know, the families must know, because we need to walk with them. So each family, I think, what the Western Cape government did, or the Department of Cultural Affairs and Sport did, was to assign coordinators to each family. And that would ensure that you give specific focus to that particular family.
Yeah.
And then my role was oversight, I've said. You probably know that there were times where we had all three families, after we've met with the families, getting their consent as well to form part of the reburial process.
Yes.
That we called for all three so that everyone is on the same page. We don't give little piecemeal information to Mioli, Tamana, or February.
Yeah.
But everyone needed to be on the same page. And I think at that particular point is also where the families has also aired the what they want to see coming out of this process. So I'd say from the onset, families were involved. It wasn't easy. I don't know if I need to say this, but with the February family, the first time when I engaged with them, it was a very emotional meeting. And as I've mentioned, Terry February didn't know Carol and Lyndon and the team, and here we come in and we're trying to convince. And what I take home from it was that Terry and his family was very, very, very clear that they want a dignified process. We don't want it to be politicized. And actually, if you really look at it and look at what the role of a public servant is to serve. And I think they've basically put us on that trajectory or that pathway of you need to serve. And you are here to serve us. Correct. According to our wishes, to ensure that our loved ones come back and that our loved ones are buried in a dignified way. So yeah, I'd say it right on from the start.
On a personal reflection, can you briefly explain the repatriation, exhumation, and burial process of Basil February? What did it mean to you personally to be involved in this process?
Sure. That's a big question.
Yeah, this is now taking it away from the broader three-family spectrum. So
yeah.
The focus here is the personal reflection on the repatriation, exhumation, and burial process of Basil February. What did it mean to you personally to be involved in the process?
All right. For me personally, it's been a very humbling experience. It's been a humbling and a spiritual journey, if I might say so. Reflecting on it, starting with a family, when we engage with a family first, especially with the February family, that emotion that came through. At that meeting, I realized that this is not a tick box, it's done, compliance, but it's about, I immersed myself in wanting to walk with a family. It made me think back of when I was younger. I worked at Maibuye Archives, Robben Island Museum, and they had I was working with the artifact collection, obviously, but it was closely related also to the photographic collection. And I used to see Basil's picture on this poster, and I used to really intriguedly look at this picture, but not like, oh, okay, and it dawned on me, but maybe my pathway was set, because I never knew that from Maibuye, and we know that Maibuye means let it return, also a word for let it return. let restoration be returned, let justice, prevail. I never knew I would be part of this journey with Basil February and his family to rebury him. And for me, it is making sure that the recognition and the remembrance of Basil and others are put out there for future generations. Currently in the world, we see polarization. But if one look at the liberation struggle and how cohesively communities were together because we had a common cause of freedom, we need to use our experiences, and we need to use the experience of Basil February and others to say that, hello, we have fought for freedom. There was a cause. Whatever cause we have now, we can use the learnings to ensure that we move past these different challenges or the hurdles that we experience in the country. And for me, it's about making that available and to ensure that we never forget that. Apart from that, it's also about the documentation of the journey. I mean, I equated back to when we had the handover ceremony to the family, where before that in our archives, the provincial archives, we have retrieved records of Basil February, mother and father's name, and his birth date, where he was, the town and all of that. We retrieve information on where he was incarcerated at the very same archives, Ruland Street. But also we've also retrieved records of his grandmother and his grandfather. So bringing that and contextualizing Basil in that, his journey outside of the country, as well as the journey that his family has gone through, it creates a picture, a holistic picture.
Yeah.
Not just about being one-sided. Yes, he has been part and greatly part of freedom that we have, but he was a person as who's the person behind what has happened and what was the reason why he went. And the reason why he went is what we need to showcase to our younger generation and to everyone that interact with this information.
Carol, you mentioned earlier on your spiritual connection with this repatriation and reburial process of Basil. Talk to me about that. Spiritually,
I do believe that we are all physical and spirit, two in one. As a people, some people I would think that just have a heightened sense of tapping into that realm. And as I've mentioned, my Ibuye, and as you see my journey that I've walked, I think it was a spiritual connection that started already then, when I engaged with documents and with posters of Basil. With Basil specifically, and I remember on the 21st of October, 8 days before the funeral, the reburial, and maybe
this was in 2024.
2024, yes. I had a spiritual connection with him. I remember writing it down where he mentioned, I was writing, I have waited for over 40 years to come back. Now I'm finally back. I have seen the light. Please allow me to walk with you. That was like the heighten of, wow, what is happening here? I immediately told my HOD about that experience, and he said to me, wow, it's profound. I said, well, some people may believe it, some people may not believe it, but that is my personal experience of experiencing Basil. I experienced everything that he went through the moment that he was shot. And then following that, he came through.
That must have been quite an experience.
It was.
Wow.
It was. And I think that basically told me that, you know, when you are involved with a project like this, and as I've mentioned when we started the conversation, is that it's not just a tick box. It's a journey. It was for me to learn, for me to engage who Terry February and family is, and how they have hold the memory of Basil. But it was also for Basil to show me that for some reason we were connected.
Right.
And for some reason it was about giving that brief moment that I shared with him over to his brother at the funeral on the 29th of October, saying that it's okay. Basil is here. He's happy. He's happy that you've walked this journey and that we need to continue walking this journey in terms of memory as well as recognition.
Thank you. What were some of the key challenges and the steps involved in bringing Basil February's remains home? Were there any moments during this process that stood out for you emotionally or symbolically? Just briefly, you've covered some in the question that I'm posing now, but is there something that really stands out, a moment that stands out particularly for you?
My first encounter with Terry February. I didn't know how to manage it. I was very anxious. I didn't know what to expect. And then here Terry tells me and my colleague that, you know, I don't know. And then the emotions from Terry came up and I was like, okay, what do I do now? But then I went with it because obviously it's opening up a wound. It's been a lot of information, a lot of trauma that Terry has gone through. And I remember afterwards, I think Terry said to me that, I will think about it. And I remember saying to my colleague afterwards, you know what, don't press. Terry will tell us when he's ready on how the process will be taken forward. So that for me was profound. And then when Terry phoned me and said, no, Carol, you know, I've spoken to Colette. And Colette said, yes, we're moving through with this. And for me, that was profound. Another profound moment is what I said to you in my spiritual journey with Basil himself. But as well as when H.U.D. Redman was at Bulawayo, he showed me that plaque that you found at the graveside. And he sent me the picture. I think you sent it to me,
Yes.
Terry, as well. I was like taken with so much emotion that I'm like, wow, you know, that piece of information, that piece of artifact that you found there is so profound and it gives the surety to the family that this is Basil.
Yeah.
And then obviously for me was when we found the records in the archives.
Yeah.
And we could hand it over to the February family. So those were the profound moments. But not for every stalwart we could find information in our records, you know, at the archives. So the documentation for me moving forward is very, very important.
Okay. On the historical aspect, historical and national significance, in your view, what is the broader historical significance of Basil February's repatriation? How do you think this moment contributes to national memory and recognition of the struggle for our freedom?
I think nationally, it's about recognizing that the point where we are now at, we are not here by ourselves. And especially those that have not been, very active in the struggle. For instance, the new generation coming now. It's about making sure or telling them the story that freedom that we have now was sacrifices of those that have lost their lives. We need to protect that freedom. But with freedom comes responsibility and accountability, so that what has happened in the past does not happen again. So historically, it is also about teaching our history to our young people. Not just to our young people, but to everyone in the community. Because I think that sometimes we forget.
Indeed.
And sometimes we need to be reminded that, hang on, we've come through a lot of trauma as a people in South Africa. We need to come together. We need each other now. And history, the process of repatriation, enables that. And I do think that it's about not forgetting the legacy that Basil and others has provided for us. It's about remembering and carrying on.
Yeah.
It's about making sure that history is told in the correct and the factual way, so that our young people know who they are and
Yeah.
where they come from.
Thanks for that. Carol, your last thoughts. Is there anything else you would like to share? Perhaps something personal, symbolic, or behind the scenes that people should know about this journey?
Oh, behind the scenes. As officials, we had moments of crying together with the families. We had moments where we laughed. We had moments where it was so difficult that we didn't know how to maneuver or to move through. But I think in the end, we stood together as a team. We took the message of, we need to create hope. Hope is already there. We need to make hope real through supporting the families through this process. There were times, Terry, where I didn't know whether I was coming or going. I guess that was the spiritual experience for me, because it's quite a lot of energy. But then it's about how do you balance that with the work that you need to do as a public servant. And hence I said, we are physical, we are spirit. You can't disconnect the two. The one informs the other. So for me, those were the personal anecdotes or the personal experiences that I will forever treasure. Forever treasure that I've been part of the journey with Basil February. But will also was part of the journey with the Tamana and the Miole family and those that would come.
Yeah.
I do believe that nothing happens for no reason, and that in all that we do as or at the Department of Cultural Affairs and Sport, that we ensure that the journey that we walk with you as families are dignified. We respect you as the families, and we will support in all that we do to ensure that the memory of our stalwarts lives on. So, yeah.
Thank you.